converted man here. Oy vey! I get to analyze a Jewish argument for once. Usually it's Christians, but now I found a Jew. And he's gonna give the best proof for God ever. The best! In only 4 minutes and 30 seconds, the best proof of God. Here we go.
The key principles of Judaism, creation, revelation, and redemption, provide us with three pathways in which to encounter God. So let's take first creation. One of the greatest scientists of our time, Lord Martin Rees, former Astronomer Royal, President of the Royal Society, Master of Trinity College, Cambridge, one of the greatest scientists in the world, in his book, Just Six Numbers, points out that the entire existence of the universe depends on 6 mathematical constants, which have to be so precise that the probability of any combustible source of energy coalescing around those 6 constants is almost infinitesimally small. So the universe is finely tuned for the emergence of life. It could...
Oh, geez. No, it's not. That's backwards thinking. So the fine-tuning argument, these constants aren't as finely tuned as they'd like you to think. Within certain parameters, these things can have different constants. So if the weak electrical, weak radiation and all these different constants were different, then things would be different. But they'd have to be significantly different for some of them. And for others, slightly. So I think it's radiation. If that was like different by however many degrees, then it wouldn't be possible for things to form in the way that they did. But that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean that it wouldn't form some other way that we don't know about. So we do not have, to my knowledge, any models of what a universe that came with different attributes would look like. So rearrange these constants and have a universe be simulated via, computer simulation. First, make sure that it can do our universe, with the constants that we know, and then tweak them and see what universe it comes up with. But life adapt to the universe, not the universe adapting to life. Life is later in the universe. Life doesn't appear in the universe until way late in the game. So this is just a reversal of what we know to be true. It's like, here's these things. If these things were different, we wouldn't have life. Well, we wouldn't have this type of life. We might have different types of life. We might have a different type of universe. We might not have any type of universe. Who knows? But to say it's adapted for life is incorrect, because life doesn't arrive, at least the only life we know about, which is here on Earth. So that's 4 million some odd years old. The Earth is universe 13 billion years old. So for about 9 billion years, give or take, the universe was just preparing itself for life's arrival. No. Life evolved to fit the universe that it found itself in because it could do that. And any universe where anything that we would call life, or whatever even life means, any universe where that's possible, it could happen. And if the conditions are correct, then it will happen. So the argument just is a non-starter. It doesn't point to God. It doesn't point to anything at all.
Not have happened by mere chance. Equally, the emergence of life itself from inanimate matter is both inherently mysterious and goes against one of the fundamental principles of entropy, which is that the world is any system gradually loses energy and order. Now, biology.
So you're appealing to personal incredulity. You don't understand it. It's too complicated. And the entropy thing, you're within a closed system, entropy is in effect. So the Earth isn't exactly a closed system because we have tons of energy pouring in from the sun. So entropy will happen and does happen. That's what death is, by the way. But that life is somehow going against entropy? No, not even a little bit. Stick with theology. Your science is lacking. Look, I don't know that much about science, so I'm not going to be able to explain it better. But you're just wrong on this.
Biology works in the exactly opposite way, from very simple organisms to ever increasing organisms of self-organizing complexity. So if that didn't have an intelligent creator, we would have no way of understanding it at all.
That's an interesting assertion to make. So if it wasn't the way that I say it was, then we couldn't make sense of anything at all. So if it wasn't an intelligence that made us, we wouldn't even understand that we were made. What? What kind of incoherent nonsense is that? It's just question begging, just filling in the gap, circular reasoning. Just, oh, well, if we weren't made by God, then we weren't made. Then we couldn't know that we weren't made by God. What? So animals, since they don't know that they're made at all. In fact, animals, don't know. Well, who knows what they do know, but they don't seem to have those complex thoughts at any rate. So, assuming that they gained the ability, and it was like, well, jeez. So, does that mean they're not made by God because they don't know that they were there? It's so dumb. And so it's like if somebody comes into existence and doesn't know, then do they not know that they were made from God, so they weren't made from God? It doesn't work. And it's not even an argument. I'm waiting for the proof. Does he have any proof? Does he offer any proof, or is it just bad argument? It's just a bad argument, isn't it? That is, of course, yeah.
So if you look at creation, you realize why it was that Francis Collins, who headed the Human Genome Decoding Project, began it as an atheist and ended it as a religious believer.
If you look at creation, you're assuming that there's a creation to look at, so you're pre-assuming your conclusion, and also you made a claim about Francis Collins. So you claim that Francis Collins came into the project as an atheist and then went out as a Christian, right? Uh-oh. What's this say? According to this website. Now, this is PBS. I'll link the thing so you can, if you can find a different thing that says differently, let me know. He converted from atheism to Christianity in his 20s after seeing how radically his parents' faith transformed their experience of suffering after reading several works of C.S. Lewis. Some 30 years later, he stands by his convictions, positioning science not as a substitute for theology, but as a subset of it. Here, Collins traces his personal path to God's willing, so his faith affects his work. What follows his editorial descriptive interview conducted for the making of the question of God. Okay, so he did not come in as an atheist and leave as a Christian. And by the way, it was interesting. I mean, he didn't leave as a Jew, so isn't that kind of a problem? But you, Rabbi, you just got this one completely wrong. Would have been nice if you'd had a citation of where you got the idea that this guy came in as an atheist, That might have been a good idea to have. Oh, how many citations do you have here? Oh, let's see. Oh, is it 0? Yep, 0. Just Lord Rabbi Jonathan Sacks. That's it. That's it. Just your name. That's it. Wow, amazing. Just nothing. Absolutely nothing to offer us. Amazing. Anyways, please proceed with your bad, incoherent argument that has no proof. You haven't offered proof, not even a little yet.
So if you look at creation, the simplest explanation, and I don't know of any other, for its fine-tuning for the emergence of life.
Okay, a simple explanation doesn't mean that is the explanation. How simple or complicated an explanation is has no bearing on the truth of the matter, one way or the other. So, it's really simple. This is why it is this way. It's really complicated that this is this way. It doesn't matter. It might be true or false. It doesn't matter how simple or complicated it is. And the fact that you don't know a way to explain it is appeal to personal incredulity. I don't know, so it must be this.
Life is an intelligent creator. And you don't need to invoke doubtful concepts like intelligent design. There's just no other way of explaining how it happened to be like that. Secondly,
there's plenty of ways to explain how it came to be, but you like this one, so this is the one that you want. But again, this is just an appeal. This is what? Appeal to ignorance, appeal to personal incredulity. So there's no other way to explain this. How do you know that? How do you know there's no other way to? And even if that is the case, that there's no other way to explain it, that doesn't mean that your explanation wins. That's not how logic functions.
In terms of revelation, the Torah. Look at Judaism. Jews are a tiny people, 14 million perhaps in the world today.
Yeah.
And yet so powerful were the ideas of Torah that they inspired two other great religions, each of which took a part of Judaism, not the whole of it, but see themselves as worshipping the God of Abraham.
So what? How is that even a little bit relevant? What inspired what doesn't make that thing true? Oh, jeez. So the religions that inspired Judaism, Yahweh, and what was his wife's name? Asherah, I think. His wife, what was her name? Yeah, Asherah. That was like what? Some pagan religion of the time, just some random religion chilling out. So wherever that came from was first, and then before that was some other thing. Zoroastrianism was before Judaism. Zoroastrianism, certainly a lot of its ideas are found in Judaism, so that inspired Judaism. So that must make Zoroastrianism more powerful and more true than Judaism, because it inspired other religions. So is the truth of something dependent on how much inspiration it causes? No. How many things or how many people, how many whatever that something does or does not inspire does not make it true or false. It's completely and wholly irrelevant to the question of, is this true? The Lobsterist has inspired, what, a few people? No one? One person? I don't know. Not that many people. But that doesn't make it true or false. The amount of people it inspires doesn't make it true or false. Star Wars inspired all sorts of sequels and prequels. That doesn't make it true or false, does it? No. Now look at Star Trek. How many movies and books and TV shows based on Star Trek? Oh, that must make that really true. It's just, no, that's not how to find out what's true.
And that comprises 2.4 billion Christians and 1.6 billion Muslims, far more than half the people alive today. Now, how was it that a man, Abraham, who lived almost 4,000 years ago, who commanded no armies, ruled no empire, performed no miracles.
How do you know he didn't command any armies? It seems that the Bible is very much about war. So I don't know. And Yahweh is a war god. It seems like there was some battles going on, but I don't know. Maybe he commanded. How do you know that he didn't do any of these things? Well, I'll grant that he didn't do any miracles, but what was your question? Go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted your question, Rabbi. Go ahead and ask your pointless question.
Who commanded no armies, ruled no empire, performed no miracles, uttered no world-changing prophecies. His lessons are so pure and true and eternally valid that they have persuaded more than half the world's population, that is.
So how is it that this person persuaded people after, even though he didn't do X, Y, and Z? Well, it wasn't a single person working that did that. The spread of religious doctrine and dogma is done by humans that follow it. So however many Jewish people there were, they were spreading that either by having kids and doing it that way, or by people coming to them and becoming Jewish or whatever. You had then the early Christians, kind of take Judaism as a base plate and add onto it other nonsense, and they spread the ideas further, helped by the state and by other agencies. And then you have, the Muslims that took Judaism and took Christianity and added more nonsense to it, and they spread it with their culture and their power and whatnot. So it's, again, not a measure of whether if something is true or not, how well it spreads. Disinformation can spread just as well, and you're just assuming and asserting that this guy has these holy, perfect thing, yada, 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 because he's a guy you like. Abraham, important guy for the Jews. I don't care about him. I don't even, maybe he existed, maybe he didn't. I don't know. No reason to really doubt his existence per se, because he didn't do any magic. So, I'll grant that he probably existed. I don't really care. But this question of how did he do this? Well, there's plenty of ways. Like I said, culture, people spreading the message. That's how. It doesn't have to be, how is it that Scientology spread so far with so many people? Ron L. Hubbard must be amazing. Look at how amazing that is. It started really small and then spread really quickly. Look at Mormonism. Oh man, Joseph Smith must be amazing. You could say the same thing and make the same claims. It's not how you determine what's true or not, just by how widespread it is or how inspirational it's been. That's just complete and utter irrelevant.
There's not a single human being who has ever lived who had a greater influence. And if
really, I mean, how do you know that? And again, irrelevant.
That is not proof through history, empirically, of the truth of revelation. I don't know what is.
Well, you don't know what is. I'll grant that. It's not proof of revelation at all. Revelation, you couldn't prove revelation anyways. It's just, I don't even know what you mean by revelation. I'm not even, well, maybe you could, but what the bleep do you mean by revelation? It's just, I don't know. Just, revelation is a non-starter because you're assuming something is revealed already. You have to prove that it's revealed in the first place. So if this is your, oh, look how widespread it is, that must be proof of that it's true. Well, it's just nonsense.
As for redemption, the great open societies of the West were built in the 17th century by people deeply immersed in the Hebrew Bible, whether they be John Milton and John Locke in England, or the great Calvinists in Scotland or in Holland, or the Puritans who made their way in the 1620s and 30s to America. These were all people inspired by Torah to build free societies with respect for human dignity and rights. And that is the clearest form of redemption that we've had. Every redemptive movement that has succeeded, and there have been plenty that failed, like the Russian Revolution, the French Revolution, which were essentially secular movements.
Were they?
Every redemptive movement that's brought freedom to human beings and to human society has been based on the Torah, usually very explicitly. So,
really? I mean, just asking here, Rabbi, because you know the Torah better than I. What's the deal with the slavery stuff in the Torah there? I mean, I know you guys and gals don't do that anymore, but just saying, like, why is that even in there? It should just be like, this stuff is bad. Don't do that. People like did slaves based on those writings. Say, hey, look, it says you can do it. So we're going to use that to justify us being able to do it. But again, it doesn't speak to the truth of something one way or the other. And this isn't a proof, so.
Whether we look at creation or revelation or redemption, there can be, I think, no doubt that these things are all divine. They are the three ways that point us to God.
And that's it. There you go. No proof was offered. This is why is this continue to be a thing? Why can't people know what the hell proof means? Proof appears in mathematics. The other sort of proof would be evidence. And when people say evidence, they're not asking for an argument. They're asking for the bloody evidence. And we should understand what people mean by evidence by now. Empirical, verifiable, testable things. Something tangible. Writings would, okay, that's something. Maybe it's not as good as other evidence, but it's like, okay, we have these writings. These old ancient writings. Well, okay, that's something. Not much. Well, look at these. Well, what about them? Who wrote them when? Well, we don't really know who wrote them. And we kind of know when. Where were they found? When were they found? Who found them? What do they say? Did they say things that correspond, that align with reality? And if not, why bother with it? The Torah has borrowed, if not taken, stories from other places. So that must be those other places are the inspiration for the Torah, making them more greater and then making those more truer. Yeah. None of this is proof of anything. Not even a little bit. It's just another bad argument to add to the pile of bad arguments. We don't have anything here to go on. No proof, no empirical evidence, no repeatable test, no sound argument. And unless and until we do, we must be skeptical of those conclusions. Oy vey.